share the video because I haven't got a clue what is going on here with the technician. Kamau has been messing it up, and now it's my turn to messing up, and I'm just gonna leave it. So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Ngozi Talk Show. I'm gonna hand you over to our guest. Over to you, Dr. Birgget. Please introduce yourself to our audience. Technical problems.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depend on where you are and the time when you are seeing this. That interesting. What a wonderful introduction for this show here. Life full of glitches. Life has plenty of opportunity for glitches, things that happen, and that also means that this it also means that life, because life has things happen, life has plenty of opportunity of forgiveness. And it is actually very important for us to be able to forgive little things and big things and let it go. So it is a perfect introduction of the universe for our talk today, which is why forgiveness is important for us to be able to succeed very well. And I am Birgget Tan, and I am a grief transformation coach as well as speaker, and author, and oncologist. And today will help you to learn to let go what's no longer serving you so you can move forward and be your most successful self.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Birgget. Over to you, Mr. Kamau. Please introduce yourself to our audience. And I'm very sorry for the technical issues.
Thank you, Nomsa. Thank you, Birgit. Well, the same as Birgit was saying, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, wherever you may be listening to us. And we welcome you on board. We welcome you to our talk show today. My name is Kamal Amer. I am a certified NLP trainer, master practitioner, hypnotherapist, as well as a certified life purpose specialist. I find joy and happiness in helping people uncover their purposes in life through ancient Egyptian methodology as well as NLP. And we do that in tandem with each other, we collaborate, and we help you live a life that is more purposeful, containing harmony and balance. Thank you.
Keep remembering to take this thing off. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kamal and Dr. Birgget. So our topic today is how forgiveness unlocks the path to success. So Dr. Birgget, you chose this topic. Could you please explain to our audience why you chose the topic and what it means to you to forgive someone?
Thank you. Absolutely, Numsa. So, first of all, to forgive. Many times we confuse forgiveness with agreeing and approving. And forgiveness, and therefore, when we confuse forgiveness with agreeing and approving, it make it very challenging at times, depend on what happening in life, for us to forgive, because certain things that happen, whether it's our own doing or others, it's just very much something that we don't want to approve and or agree. And the fact is, forgiveness has absolutely nothing to do with agreeing or approving. And also, the other thing that we don't realize many times is we say forgiveness, we see forgiving as if it is some kind of a spiritual journey that make you try to become a holy person or something like that. I forgive, and therefore, I'm floating on a cloud or something. And no, for that, sure, if that's what forgiveness will allow you to do, that's awesome. But forgiveness actually is letting go, and until you let go, it is very difficult for you to be able to move forward to where you want to be, to your success. To me, not forgiving is practically equivalent to chaining yourself into a 100-kilogram ball to both of your ankles. Imagine if you want to move forward to walk to your success, never mind run to your success, and now you have this 100-kilogram metal ball chained to each of your ankle. Would you think you'll be able to do that well? Perhaps not. And so that is why we're going to discuss forgiveness a little bit more on what it is. But that's why it is really important when you want to be able to move forward in your life, to be able to let go what's no longer serving you and any things that can weight your heart and your mind down.
Thank you so much, Dr. Birgget. I'm not going to comment. I'm going to let Kamal comment on what Dr. Birgget has just said, or if you have an opinion, or if anyone is watching, you want to add to what the speakers are saying, or you want to ask questions, please do. We are all here to learn from each other. Over to you, Kamal, please.
Thank you, Nomsa, and thank you for a wonderful introduction, Birgit. I really like the part where you said that it's chaining yourself, right? You're chaining yourself. The other expression that I use when it comes to forgiveness, especially when it concerns success, right? If you don't learn how to forgive yourself, you're just poisoning yourself, right? For me, it's the equivalent of a poison. It's holding grudges, it's having regret, it's being angry. But that anger is it's not against somebody, it is against yourself. And the person that is suffering is not the other person who you haven't forgiven, or yourself. It's just you again. That if you haven't forgiven yourself, you're constantly harming yourself, you're poisoning yourself, right? And that's my equivalent when it comes to forgiveness. But since we're talking about forgiveness and how it affects our success, I'm really aligned with what Birgit was saying here.
I love that when you say that, Kamal. A lot of people do not realize that the number one thing of forgiveness is actually self-forgiveness above and beyond anything. Anytime you discover that there is an event or a person that you are to forgive, almost consistently, there is a part of yourself that you also want to forgive anytime, whether it's an event or something. Many times we say, oh, okay, I have forgiven my ex-husband, I have forgiven this person who did such and such things to me. If it is actually something that is truly a significant event in your life, when you do that, the next step that you want to do is actually, yeah, and as important, if not more importantly, like Kamal says, to forgive yourself. Because and how do you know when there is something for you to still forgive yourself? Anytime you hear yourself saying some things in the vicinity of, oh, I should have, oh, I could have, oh, if only I knew. And those are some of the key that you are actually still has something, and until you let that go, like Kamal says, you still have. To me, I'm an oncologist by training. I'm a cancer specialist by training, and it is all as if forgiveness is a cancer or a tumor, when you forgive somebody, you scoop out the bulk of the tumor. But at the same time, if you are thinking about tumor, and I say this to every single cancer patient, what you see is the tip of the iceberg. If you see a tumor here, this is a tumor. This is the tip of the iceberg. Every cancer has roots going deep and into all directions. If you only forgive someone else who wronged you and not yourself, you remove the tip of the iceberg. The roots is still in you. And that's what self-forgiveness is. And when you clear up everything, is actually when you are able to truly be free and move on to your success.
You're absolutely right, and that's for me the work starts within first before it starts outwards. Though you see, when you were explaining, I'm going to use your metaphor, right? The roots and the pit, right? If you remove the roots first, the pit will have nowhere to grow. The pit will have nowhere to to expand, and then becomes so much easier to forgive others. But I like that metaphor that you use right now. It's beautiful.
Kevin says it's a great topic. Forgiveness leads to freedom. He was watching Lisa Nichols talks about forgiveness this morning. It was awesome. So I agree with you guys. Forgiveness, like what Dr. Birgget and you come on, what you're saying. If you talk about something and it's still hurt inside, that means you have not completely forgiven that person. You have not let go of whatever the situation that might be. So it is very important to make sure that um, you forgive yourself. No matter, it doesn't matter whatever was done in your life, because people enter your life, remember, to teach us a lesson. So it's up to us how we respond in that situation. So we have to learn to forgive ourselves. And for me personally, there are so many things that are I've held in my life. Like every time I entered a relationship 10 years ago, it will affect my relationship because there was still someone that I hadn't forgave. But when I actually decided to forgive every situation in my life, I basically decided to go every situation where I felt that people have hurt me and where I felt that I have held that anger within. I had to go and do everything. I do everything. Is it simple? No. It's very painful. To let go of things that do not serve you, to let go of somebody in your life is not easy. It doesn't matter whether is it a relationship or whether you've met Kamal and you meet Kamal, you chat to Kamal, he says words that hurt you. It doesn't matter, but it is those words that stick with you that hurts. So I remember when I wanted to let go of all those things, it felt like there was a dark cloud inside of my chest. And I don't want to go there. By the time I went, basically I went 40 days fasting, asking for forgiveness and asking for myself to forgive myself and asking people, reliving every situation. It wasn't simple. Maybe one day I'm going to talk about it. And when I did that in the last day of that forgiveness, 40 days, I opened the door that I didn't realize what it means when you hold on to pain, what it means when you hold on to people into your heart. It hurts. I came with a confrontation. So I'm going to let you, Dr. Birgit, what is forgiveness anyway? And you and Kamal, can you guys explain to our audience what is forgiveness? Because sometimes some people they might not understand. Yeah, I always forgive. What does it mean when you say I have forgive myself 100% completely? What is it?
So that thank you, Nomsa. That's wonderful questions, and actually that's perfect questions to also allow me to visit one of the other thing you mentioned just now, talking about forgiving. Many times we think when we think about forgiveness, we think about forgiving a person.
Yeah.
Forgiveness, true forgiveness, and many times overlooked, include forgiving an event. Have you ever have an event in your life when you said, I wish that never happened? Why is this happened to me? Why is this happened to me again? Those event, forgiveness is not just for person. Forgiveness is anything that you did not want to happen. So what is forgiveness? Now for different people have different take on forgiveness. For instance, My mentor says forgiveness is letting go of anger and resentment to allow love's presence, which I think also if some of us study the Course in Miracle, that's some things that the Course in Miracle says. And so many of us have different forgiveness, different take on forgiveness. The one that at the end of the day, I find very helpful, and as a grief transformation specialist, as grief confirmation consultant, practically everybody that comes to work with me has something to forgive. And forgiveness, really, at the bottom of everything, is letting go of your hope that things happen differently. Letting go of your hope. Because at the end of the day, when you're not forgiving things, until you forgive things, it is actually you are hoping that things has happened differently. You are hoping that this person's never did this or this person never did that, and this event never happened. And so it's the true forgiveness. When you are able to forgive everything fully, including yourself, is letting go of your hope that things happen differently, that which is the definition of forgiveness by the Grief Recovery Institute, where you let go, you let go of, I wish I have done things differently. I wish I have not said that. I wish this never happened in my life. And so letting go of your hope, letting go of your memory of things or event or person that is still haunting you, so you can move on. Now some people has again different takes. That is one of the one that I find very helpful. Sometimes if we are spiritual, we might refers to what the Bible says, and there's definitely no right or wrong, whatever work for you. But at the end of the day, forgiveness, and then the other part of that is forgiveness is one thing that we want to remember. You mentioned this, you sort of touch on this, Numsa, to say, oh, I want to forgive. Many of us don't realize that forgiveness is an action. Forgiveness is not a feeling, because just like in the English language, anything that you can add on ing to that, it's actually a verb. A verb means taking action. So letting go is an action. It's not a feeling. So that is what I see forgiveness with is.
Mr. Kamal, wakey wakey.
I was wondering on the explanation of giving up on hope or letting go of hope, and contemplating that word hope, right, with regards to forgiveness. I can see the relationship when it comes to the hope of having done something better in that sense, about the event in per se. Letting go of hope. I think without hope, we don't have really much to live for, you know? So hoping for a better life than it was, that's still okay for me. And it's not really, to me, it's not related to forgiveness. What relates to forgiveness is carrying that burden of the event, like you were mentioning, right? That event or that person. And again, everything you said, I agree with. It's the factor that that event has caused you to think differently, right? And without that event, there would be no who you are today. Your existence, your presence today at that stage where you are in life wouldn't have happened. So forgiveness is, for me, is acceptance. It's accepting what has happened in the past. It's accepting that you only know what you know back then, that you did your best based on the options available for you. You handled the situation how good you could back then. Maybe now you can handle it better, but there's no point now in thinking about how you can handle it because you did your best back then. So acceptance is forgiveness for me. Accepting yourself how you are, accepting what happened to you as part of your growth, accepting that everything, like you said, happens for a reason. Now, everybody we meet, everything that happens to us, it is all for a reason. We might not understand the big picture because the puzzle is way too bigger for us. We're one piece of the puzzle, but so we can't see the whole image. And so that acceptance plays a big role in your life. If one cannot accept how things happened in our life to shape us and not why they happened to us, see, that's one of the biggest mistakes that people do when they are falling into that regret pattern or not forgiving somebody is, why is this happening to me? Why couldn't have it happen this way? The why? The why is not important. It does not matter. You maybe might know it, you might not know it in the future. What's important is that how it happened to you and what can you learn from it? What did it teach you? And are you ready actually to learn from that experience? And all of that stems from the part of acceptance, that acceptance of the self foremost, because without accepting who you were back then, you won't be able to forgive that event or that person because you didn't know any better again. So I think forgiveness stems from acceptance. It stems from letting go, or actually surrendering. If you have faith, it means surrendering. Surrendering, knowing that. But let me go back and explain. Surrender for people means to lose. For most people, when you define what is surrender, it means to give up and lose the battle. Surrender in this context is very different. It's surrendering to a higher purpose. It's surrendering to faith, to a God, to the universe, whatever you might call it. And that surrender is understanding that the things in our life that we cannot control are there for a reason, and that's the surrender. You can control certain aspects of your life, but we have limited control over a lot of things. And that's also another part of acceptance. Now that allows you to grow, that allows you to forgive others as well, after you've forgiven yourself, after you've accepted yourself. And once you have that capability of acceptance and forgiveness for others becomes very simple because you don't carry with you whatever they did to you. You can finally say, I forgive you, or I forgive myself, and I forgive that event for happening. And if something bad happens in the future, you don't recall it. You don't say, "Oh, but you did that in the past." You know, a lot of couples do that, right? I know women are very strong with that. I'm not being a feminist. I'm just like, I know they carry these bits. I forgive you, honey. I forgive you for what you've done. And then, like 2 weeks later, he does it. Yeah, but you did that in the past, right? He's like, that's not forgiving. That is absolutely not forgiving. That is carrying still a grudge. You're carrying like a blacklist, right? So forgiving means to accept what happened, to let go of it, to remember it as a learning process, but not to bring it up again. And I just wanted to throw in a bit of a joke inside here. I know a lot of men do that as well.
Actually, I agree with Kamal. Like 10 years ago, I would say to my ex, I'll forgive you. And then when he does something, I'm like, you remember what you did on my birthday? What you did, you forgot my birthday, or you didn't get me this, or you didn't do this. And it's like, hang on a minute. But we're talking about, so I've learned that when I forgive someone, I have to forget, not to forget about it. I don't know whether I have to forget. I have to learn a lesson from it and then let it go completely. And it is also very important to, like what Kamal was saying, that when you forgive someone, you make sure that you don't bring it up again, because it means you have not worked on yourself. For me, what I do is, if I'm hurt, I never used to do this before. If I'm hurt by something, I have to allow myself to cry. That moment, I have to cry. It doesn't matter where I am. I have to cry because I don't care about somebody who is sitting next to me. And this is my attitude. I don't care about someone who is sitting next to me. If I'm crying, if I'm hurt, I have to cry. It's up to you whether you want to give me a hug. I have to let it all out. And when I cry, I have to acknowledge the feeling that this is what this feeling is doing. Do I need to accept it in my heart, or do I need to let it go completely? And at the same time, I have to understand that there's something that I had to learn myself, that sometimes people hate us because we are responsible for it. We may not know this, but Kamau, you are on social media now. We have 30 speakers on Gossip Talk Show, and Dr. Birgget, we have 30 speakers on Gossip Talk Show. You post on social media. You learn how to deal with your problems. And somebody else has not learned how to deal with their problems. And they see you posting, they think your life is perfect, but you are aware yourself that your life is not perfect. But that person starts becoming jealous of you. So you have contributed that part by being you. So there's part of us that we contribute. Or sometimes you might contribute just by being handsome. And somebody has a crush on you, and they feel that you don't recognize them, that they have a crush on you. Why can't he recognize that I like him? And then that person start getting angry with you, and they start getting upset. So your handsomeness can actually contribute to somebody else's anger. So those are the things that I have learned the hard way, that if someone is angry, I need to take everything into consideration. What part did I play? Is it by being me like myself? Before, I used to let people control me. I used to agree with everything before I went into personal development or started psychology. But then by the time where I started realizing that I need to speak up, I need to learn from people, let people into my life. They need to teach me what they know. I need to let them do that. Or I need to learn to disagree with something. Instead of I go for coffee, they give me cold coffee. I drink it and in my heart and say, this is cold. This is cold until I finish it. So I need to speak up and say, excuse me, politely, could you please give me a hot coffee? But I wouldn't do that before. You give me cold hot chocolate in a restaurant, I just drink it because I don't like confrontation. But I had to learn it to actually, I think NLP, you guys work on people's mind, that you need to learn to be you. You need to learn to use your mind. You need to learn to build authentic relationship. And that's where I had to learn. But sometimes when you try to speak up, you hurt the other person unknowingly. So that's why it's very, very important to actually make sure that when you forgive yourself and you forgive the other person. So that's what I do when I whatever I'm using my religious forgiveness. When I pray, I say, God, you know I'm normal, but if I have hurt the other person unknowingly, please forgive me. If they have hurt me unknowingly, please forgive them. I have to learn. I have in my heart completely. I have to learn to love them in my heart. Even if they're not talking to me, I have to keep loving. I have to keep sending those messages. It is very, very important, because if you say, oh, they're not talking to me, or I'm gonna, that means you're angry as well. So anybody who wants to make a comment, I know Kamal wants really, really bad. Go on, Kamal.
No, I like your perspective. It's there's nothing really to comment. I know I'm looking to the side here, but it's I've got a gorgeous view in front of me. I've got like the fjord and the mountain and the sky, so it gives me inspiration sometimes. That's why I'm usually looking that side. And that anger, I like when you talked about anger and forgiveness, because they sometimes they go hand in hand. But that anger is self done. That's what that's what we mean, right? And that self anger that you have against yourself, it will prevent you from succeeding at anything you are attempting in life. It will prevent you from succeeding in your personal life, in your relationship, in your business, whatever it is, right? Not necessarily to a large extent, but it will cause you difficulties. Carrying that anger is very similar when it comes to forgiveness. It's that I'm the victim, right? And you were saying like, well, sometimes it's not your fault, but you are a problem for somebody else. Um, Again, that's a perception of realities, right? We all see the world how we want to see it, not how it is. And that reality for you as a person that is working on your own forgiveness, you have to realize what it entails for your life to carry that anger, to carry that grudge, to carry that oh, I'm never going to forgive that person. Why? What does it serve you? How does it serve you? In what way? Remember, forgiveness is like pouring poison to another person but drinking it yourself. This is what it means, basically. You're not forgiving somebody, you're trying to poison somebody else, but you're taking the poison. They don't give a rat's bum about what you think of them. They don't care that you haven't forgiven them. They don't think a second for what they've done to you or what that event caused to happen to your life. None of that matters. You carrying that burden, you carrying that victim emblem or shield for yourself is pointless. So dig deep, understand how this changed your life. Understand that every single event and every single person that we meet has a meaning in our life. There is a message that is being delivered. There is a consequence to whatever happened for growth. But that growth only comes when you take the time to understand and to read the message properly. So that's what I'm going to add to what you were saying, Lisa.
I like how a couple things that I want to comment, a couple things that Kamal says and Noom says as well. One thing that I find keeping people stuck. Some people know how to let go of anger. Many people forget to let go of guilt. And it's actually the other part of forgiveness that sometimes we forget. We learn a lot of times from many things that, oh, you got to let go of your anger and this and that. But many of us forget that at the bottom of anger, many times lies guilt. And guilt is actually even more dangerous than anger when coming to forgiveness. If you have a guilt, oh, I wish I haven't done that. Oh, I don't know why I let he or she did this, and so there is a guilt somewhere. And there is actually, and it's interesting that you said for some of us it's illogical, and it seems to be illogical, and the whole thing doesn't connect. But actually, if you were to look at Dr. David Hawkins, Dr. David Hawkins, a psychiatrist who did studies on vibrational energy and everything, we know that everything is energy, everything vibrates. And in Dr. David Hawkins, he shows very clearly, and then when you see these charts, you will understand immediately why it's so important for you to let go of anger, and even more important to let go, or as important, let go of guilt, and why this can keep you stuck when you don't do that. This is the charts of Dr. David Hawkins. And this is the vibrational energy charts. This is low vibrations, this is high vibrations. And life, nature, the universe, your success is up here, where there is love, peace, enlightenment, joy, and so forth. This is where things move in life. Where is anger? Anger is down here. Where is shame and guilt? At the bottom of things. So much so that because everything is vibrations, everything is energy, not only when you are holding on to shame and guilt, and anger, not only it slow you from being able to move where the universe move, which is up here, it's actually, we have studies, we have many studies showing that it's even cause you emotional, cause you actual physical problems. And so imagine if you have physical problems, say high blood pressure, heart palpitations, anxiety, what have you, ache and pain in your body, that alone will deter you from being able to do what you need to do and become successful. And then there is the emotional part of things as well. But that's actually why it's for many times we're like, yeah, it sounds like good theory. You got to let go and yada 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 yada. So I become successful. No, it's not just good theory. It's actually been shown through multiple studies like that. In the physical realm as well, which I tend to fear to from time to time, given my background. So, and you got to forgive me to be doing that. Or you can choose to forgive me for moving to the medical part of thing at times.
Well, we don't need to forgive you. Can you forgive yourself for doing that?
Well, actually, I actually had now that's the other good part of forgiveness. You only need to forgive if you have any hold back or concerned about that. You can do, like sometimes we say this, oh, we forgiven the persons for, I don't know, drunk driving. But if the drunk driver never feel anything about this, and this is why forgiveness is all about you and not any other person. If you can have a drunk driver who kills somebody and the person says no remorse about it, he has no need to forgive anybody, including himself. And so that's the other part of that. That's why you can never, you don't want to go and say, oh, I forgive you. Many times people say, oh, I'm going to forgive somebody, so I'm going to go to the person and say, I have forgiven you. And let me tell you a secret. Many times you will be highly disappointed and get more angry if you do that. Because many times, whatever happen to be the level of awareness of that person, they might say, why are you forgiving me for? I didn't do anything wrong. So when you do forgiveness, just take care of yourself and don't worry about other people. If the persons don't feel any remorse about that, then there is nothing for that persons to forgive, and you trying to have them approve you forgiving them can only hurt you more.
And also, I think us human beings, we like drama because sometimes you find that, I'm not being funny, but sometimes you find that the things that we are holding, they're not worth it. I see myself because I've got siblings myself. Sometimes when I have an argument with my siblings, I find them saying sorry. So I'm like, why are you saying sorry? But we're having a conversation and you have not done anything to me. And we are siblings, we are allowed to argue. And I was talking to my older sister the other day. So we had a little bit of disagreement. So she was saying sorry. And then I explained to her, I said, listen, you're my big sis. You don't have to say sorry to me. We have to have a disagreement because just because I'm putting my opinion, it doesn't mean my opinion is right. It doesn't mean your opinion is wrong. So she was like, it actually makes sense if you put it that way. I was like, yeah, it does make sense. So when we have a conversation, if I say something and you say something, we just have to keep going with the conversation. But if I'm in a point where you feel that I'm hurting you, just let me know. But you don't need to apologize to me, or you don't need to feel like you've done something wrong to me. So sometimes there are things that before I got into personal development, there are things that I will hold if someone says something to me and not knowing what they're doing is wrong. I'll hold them. I get home and I say to my family, you know what? I'm really angry. I'll be serious. And then my family will be like, what's going on? You know, my family will be like, what is going on? I'm like, she did something to me. But now when I look back at all those things, it's just me allowed my reaction, my feelings to receive those situations. But there are some situations where you can refuse to actually to say, no, I don't want to be part of this. For me, I refuse to argue when it's not necessary. My battles, before I would just battle, I don't know if you guys can admit it. Before I just battle every battle, I'm involved. When there is a disagreement, I'm involved. But now I get to choose my battles. If someone feel that I've hurt them, I'm quick to give them a hug and say, I love you. I really, really love you, and I'm sorry, because I don't want it to go to a battle that is not necessary, because we are all human and no one is perfect, which I have never ever before. I wouldn't agree to that. Was I would say she should be perfect. He should know that that is wrong, or she should. Honestly, I'm speaking the truth, Kama. I'll say she should know that she shouldn't do that. But now I know that we are all human. No one is perfect. Come on. Anyone wants to comment? Why is it important to forgive? If no one wants to comment, I'm just going to bring my questions. What
Come
is
on,
the
bring in your
most
questions.
important in forgiveness? What is, before you comment or anything, I'm gonna give you a question. You can edit after. What is the most important thing in forgiveness?
Well, I think we covered that a little bit, and
Yeah.
that's the main part of forgiveness for me, at least. It's acceptance.
Oh yeah,
Accepting
you did that.
accepting that everything happens for a reason. That you don't have a clue about what you're doing until you do it, and then you realize that, okay, wait, that happened, but that's the best that you could do. So accepting what you can or could do to your best of abilities, that was, for me, that is the point of forgiveness. That's the one of the main pillars of forgiveness, if you will.
Yeah, I think we brush on that with, as Kamal said, it's acceptance, and to me, knowing how many people seems to not realize that at the end of the day, all forgiveness is self forgiveness. Is to know that you can forgive everything in the world and everything out there, but at the end of the day, if you don't take the roots of the problem, if you don't take the roots of the cancers that's in you, that actually a lot less visible, then you will still carry that. And just like with cancers, it's very easy for it to grow back and cause problem. And it's very interesting how when you look at it this way, when the way I explained it earlier with the tumor at the tip of the iceberg and everything, you're like, oh yeah, of course it makes sense to go in and scoop the whole thing out. But the truth in reality, in for some interesting reason, even in the medical field, many people look at the tumor and say, I'm gonna take it out. And then they forgot about this piece here until they grow back. And then that's when they send it to the oncologist to fix the problem. And so to remember the image here, this is the tip of the iceberg, and here don't forget this piece because it'll grow back, and usually it'll grow back a whole lot uglier. And many times with forgiveness, not only it can grow back up here a whole lot uglier, this root, just like if you ever plant trees with roots, the roots don't stay there, they either spread out or spread in. And that's actually where it's really, if you forget to about the roots, it's actually you will say, oh, I forgive this thing out there and that person out there. But if it's still in you, it will continue to influence your ability to make. And why to me it's important is to actually, when we are having anything holding us back, then it will interfere also our ability to see things like opportunity. Because when you have hold back, that hold back in Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says that everything is either from love or fear. That hold back a lot of time transmute into fear. And when you have fear, even when you have a lovely opportunity in front of you that allow you to be more successful, back to the success part of things, you will say, well, I'm not sure about that. Well, maybe that's gonna cost me this and all these things, and then that will interfere your ability to be able to grasp the most wonderful opportunity and moving forward and be successful.
Kamal, do you have any comment?
I'm on board. I agree with what I'm very much agreeing. I think we are aligned when it comes to forgiveness and understanding the cause and how we can get rid of it. So that's really nice to know.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. How would you forgive someone if someone would you forgive someone killing a member of your family? I know we are being smoothie here talking about forgiveness, but would you forgive someone killing a member of your family?
So I can take on that to start with. Since Kamal looking at me like, is he gonna say something?
I have a story, that's why. So I'm waiting for you.
so so let me just answer it this way. One time there was a client who came, and her she came in after grieving for about 16 or maybe even 20 years. 20 years of grief. Why? Because her daughter was killed at her 17th birthday. The daughter's 17th birthday, she was killed by a drunk driver. And the drunk driver, who was also under influence of multiple other things and still is, supposedly, never felt a remorse. They say, oh, well, too bad your daughter's died kind of situation. Can you imagine that? Somebody killed your family member and said, well, too bad. Everybody die at the end of the day. Hello. And so would you forgive something like that? Well, the answer is, would you want to die with that? If you do not want to die with, and actually, so that way, in other words, to see it is, would you, somebody killed your family member, killed your loved one, would you also want to die with that? Would you want that event to not only kill the person who is your loved one? Yes, it's very painful. Don't take me wrong. I'm not saying it's not going to be painful, but would you want to also be killed by it? If you do not want you to be killed by this person and this event, then you have one choice, which is to forgive, so you will be able to win. Until you can forgive, until you can truly let go, the other persons, particularly in this particular event, the other person don't even have any remorse. The person just said, oh well, he's still in his whatever absurd mental state and has no remorse. And as in her very words, she says, yeah, he continued to live happily in his absurd mental states, taking it in the United States when you are in mental prisons, taking our taxes. And so would you want to be able to actually win and make the death of your loved one into something that is potentially helpful for something else? In here, at least in the United States, there's something called Mothers Against Drunk Driving. There's an organization, it's called Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And if you look into that organization, the founder created that organization because her child was killed by a drunk driver. And so if but until you are able to do that, until you are able to say, okay, I'm going to let this go, and not hold be in the back, such that it's, most client come to me says, this thing is eating me from inside out, so things not eating you from inside out. If you want to not also be killed by somebody who killed your family member, then you want to let go. And for some of us, we use anger as a fuel, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you use anger as a fuel. For some of us, including my significant other, he used anger as a fuel, and that's fine, but not to the point. A lot of time there is a fine line. There's a fine line between using anger as a fuel, and then that anger actually start eating you. And that's when you want to be able to say, okay, this thing is actually eating me and interfering with my life. And that is the part that you want to release. And releasing basically is another name of forgiving.
Anything to say, Kamal?
Yeah, no, that was there's a very parallel story. I think it happened as well in the States, maybe 3-4 years ago. Um, there was a father in court with a guy that killed his son, and the court case was going on, and the gentleman, the father, he got up and he was speaking about forgiveness. I was saying that there's no point for me to hold this anger against you. What happened to my son was bound to happen to him. It was his time. Whether you had an impact in it or not, it doesn't matter. It was part of this. But I know you are going to be struggling. I know that you are going to be going through a long sentence. And for the death of my son, I do forgive you. And he went and he hugged him. I don't know if you've seen that story. It's a very touching story. And that person, not to go deep into a religion, but this guy, he was a Muslim, right? And this is part of Islam. It's to forgive. It's to be merciful. It is to understand that people do things and we have no control over it. And the best thing that we can do for ourselves, to not hurt ourselves, to not suffer death, like you were explaining, Birgit, is to forgive. Somebody hurts a family member. I will be furious. I will be angry. I will be upset. I'm allowed to have these emotions and feelings. I'm allowed to express them. I can express them in a very healthy way, or I can express them in an unhealthy way. The unhealthy way would be to keep it inside my mind, to let it eat me up, right? The other option is to accept, again, that things happen for a reason. And if it happened, it means that I can bear that burden. It means that there is something to be learned, and it was the time to happen. I don't know, I cannot answer myself if I am capable right now to forgive somebody that killed a family member. I don't know, because that is a very situational thing. I know I will strive to do that. I know I will push myself to do that. But reaching that stage of that gentleman that went and hugged the killer of his son, to tell him, it's okay, I forgive you, I've got nothing against you. That is a different state of awareness. It's a very high level of whether you call it spirituality, enlightenment, or acceptance. Some people can do that, and if you are one of those people, I bow down and my hat is off to you. I do know that I have accepted that when my time comes, it will come. So I'm not afraid of death. Neither is my mom, neither is my father, and we're okay with it. We know what is going to happen. We know what we want to do. Doesn't mean we won't be sad. Doesn't mean that we might get angry. But if we get angry, it means that we haven't accepted yet. We haven't accepted the truth, the fact that you live, you die. Everything that's in between, you have some sort of control over it. But there's a moment of your birth and there's a moment of your death, and they're both confirmed. So that's my opinion about forgiving somebody that harms a family member. And we've done it. If you accept things that happen to you and forgiven yourself and forgiven others for harming you, why wouldn't you accept and forgive somebody that harms somebody else from your family?
I have to look at that story because I think for me personally, I'm going to have to go through the story for me to say, yes, I'll forgive. I have to list. I have to watch that story you're talking about to come out because it sounds like a very touching story. Because, like what Dr. Birgget was saying, if you don't forgive, you end up following that person through death. So you might as well forgive because we don't have control of how we leave the earth. We don't know how. So we might as well forgive because it doesn't mean that the person that has done the killing, they're gonna be free. They still have to deal with those demons of killing that person. So that means they still have to go through the pain as well. So it's good for the other person at the other end. If there is someone who is watching who has got a family member that was taken away from them, my father was taken away from me, which I don't want to go into details, but I had to forgive, knowing that it wasn't his time. For me, I had to face the truth that it wasn't my father's time. When someone takes you away from you, they kill you, that means it's not your time. For me, I say, God, that wasn't his time. So I had to deal with those emotions. I had to, it took me years and years to fully accept that he is gone. But I think the most thing that helped me was him, because I was in the UK, it was him saying, requesting the doctors, saying, I need to speak to my daughter, explaining to me the process. Nomsa, this is the process that the doctors have drained me, the poison. Somebody put poison in my food, but the doctors have drained me. It doesn't look good. And at that moment, I remember him saying, sit down, I need to say my goodbyes properly. He's telling me that is going. You know, when someone is telling you that I'm going, you're never going to see me. And I'm like, okay, I had that opportunity. God gave me those opportunity to ask him questions, to go back to my childhood, asking me questions. I ask him questions. He replies to me the things that I wanted to know as a child. Did this, how do you feel? And he tells me, I'm good with it. I have to accept it. But he accepted it, but to me, it was hard for me to actually let it go, that pain. But eventually, you know, healing is a process. Dr. Birgget, you are grieving. I can't say the healing was easy. Some days I had bad days because I was his princess basically, and some days I had good days, some days I had bad days, until now I can speak freely about him, his death, and just be happy. That means I let it go. I let him go. So which is good. Any words of encouragement, Dr. Birgget, right now, if someone is grieving at this moment, I know there are so many people who have lost their loved ones through coronavirus. Some people are angry with the government. Some people are angry with the China coronavirus. China created the coronavirus. Honestly, when I'm saying people are angry, there are some people that I meet. They are really angry when they talk about coronavirus. They are angry. So, and those who have lost their loved ones, and those who have lost their marriages, their relationship through this pandemic, what advice can you give them, please?
Thank you, Numsa. So one thing I want to point out, we talk about because the subject is forgiveness, so we've been talking about forgiveness.
Yeah.
There is a difference between angry and grudge. There is a big difference between angry and grudge. Even when you look it up, say on the dictionary or something like that, or Wikipedia, grudge is a deep-seated anger or ill feeling or animosity. And when we're talking about forgiveness, sometimes people say, "Oh, I cannot be angry." You can be angry, but you don't want to be holding grudge, because there's a difference between that. You be angry, you know, somebody do something, the coronavirus, you don't like whatever your government do, or your neighbor, or what have you. You can be angry. It's very normal, and many times it's healthy. But when you turn into that anger or whatever going on to a grudge, where it's a deep-seated animosity, that's when you cause a problem for yourself. So there's a difference between that. And then with everything that we talk about with coronavirus, something people do other things in life, or life do things to you seemingly, is I usually defer back to the quote from Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. Steve Jobs says, "You cannot connect the dot looking forwards. You can only connect them looking back." And so whatever going on in the world, in your recent time, perhaps in your past that you still haven't connect, whatever the government, the whomever doing what have you, if it doesn't make sense to you right now, then perhaps, because when you are going through the dots, it's difficult to look at them. If you ever imagine going through a maze or something, if you're going through them, you're in the middle of it, you're in the picture, it's difficult to see the picture. But as you pass through, when you look back, even in your own life, look back, unless you happen to be a teenager, even if you're teenagers, maybe when you are too open, but your earliest memory. But otherwise, look back in your own life 20 years ago, or if you're as old as I am, 30, 40 years ago, and then you'll be able to say, "Oh yeah, I can see why that thing happened now. And it's actually for my better interest to be able to help me become stronger," and this and that. And so you cannot connect the dot looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. If there are certain things going on in life right now that you can't understand what's going on, then your job is to remember that and to keep on going. So you will be able to look back some 10, 20, 30 years from now and say, "Oh, that's why," and doing the very best you can as you go through the dot right now.
Dr. Birgget, over to you. Words of encouragement. Kamal, please, to our
Uh,
audience.
I'd like to share, like I'm used to, a very interesting quote from Mark Twain. It's very beautiful, right? He said, "Forgiveness is the scent or the fragrance of a violet that sheds." Wait a second. I completely forgot it. "Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it." Now imagine that, right? I'm not going to explain that metaphor. There's no point. Each person can understand it the way they want to understand it, because that's the point of a metaphor. But think of it for a second. The fragrance that a violet sheds on the heel of the person that crushed it. That is forgiveness. If you can do that, you have love within your heart.
I have nothing to say after that. I have nothing to say. So I'm going to just say, please, thank you so much for watching Ghosty Talk Show. If you love this message on this video, please press some heart button and share it with your friends, please. And welcome to Ghosty Talk Shows. Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Challenges we have had to overcome in 2020.
Find your own voice.
The world has become united by the unseen. knowing there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
Lead from within. Find your own voice. Let the world hear your voice and be filled with it.
For the day has come for you to be a great leader.
The time has come to break away from the pain, distraction, experience the unthinkable.
Thank you so much, guys. Oh, I need to stop this.